What's happening, everyone? Up next, you're going to hear from Curtis Butler. Curtis is a career coach, and he helps mentor folks, young folks that are coming out of college, or maybe folks that are coming out of college and are trying to find the right career. Curtis is someone that has a business that centers around helping our college graduates find those jobs that help fit their skill sets. He's a coach. And you'll hear us talk about the power of collapsing time. And what he's able to help his clients do is they're coming out and they're not kicking the can and trying to find just temporary jobs or whatever. He helps position them through teaching them how to interview and working with their weaknesses to strengthen their cover letters, their resumes, and then ultimately their interview skills, so it will position them with some of the biggest companies that are in the world today. So give it a listen. If you're a parent that has a child in college, make sure you share this, or if you know someone that is in a situation that could use this to listen to this message, be sure to share it. Today we talked about something that really got, as a parent, it's really got my brain working on how I can help get Curtis position as my kids will need this advice later in life as well. So let me know what you think, folks. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Make sure you like, share, comment, leave me a review, man. It means a ton. Thank you, everyone who's reached out. Appreciate it. I'm still stumbling my way through here, figuring this all out. Okay, that's just part of it. Thank you. All right, team, welcome back to the Second Chance Podcast. Today, we're joined by someone who knows a thing or two about navigating the complex world of careers and life's unexpected challenges. Curtis spent 30 years in finance as an investor and client-facing executive, where he built and led teams and reviewed countless resumes and interviews. But it was his passion for mentoring and helping others that led him to a major life shift. In 2024, Curtis launched Guided Ascent Career Coaching company dedicated to helping students and recent graduates find their career paths and land meaningful jobs. But Curtis's story doesn't stop there. As a devoted husband and father of two daughters, one with significant disabilities, he's faced personal challenges that have deeply influenced his world view and approach to coaching. He's here today to share his journey from the States finance world to becoming a full-time career coach and advocate for young professionals, and to discuss the lessons learned from both his professional and personal experience. Curtis Butler, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to get to know you. I read your bio. For the folks that are listening, Curtis and I just met on the internet. This is our first time, and this is a way that I really enjoy. I'm a people person. I really love to get to know people. And when you read through his bio, and someone who has experienced the things that he has on one side, and then to be the father and family guy that he is on the other, and just the initial conversation of us opening this up, I'm excited. I'm excited to get to know more about you and learn more about you, Curtis.
Thank you, Jeff. It's a pleasure to meet you too, and I'm excited to have the conversation.
To kick it off, can you tell us more about your transition from a successful career in finance to launching Guided Ascent Career Coaching? What inspired you to take that leap?
Yeah, I think it's probably been an inspiration long in the making. So I've always had a penchant for and a desire to help others and teach others. I'm in graduate school. I always say my favorite job ever was my TA role in graduate school. So teaching assistant for macroeconomics in graduate school. And I realized just how much I love helping distill down the complex and imparting knowledge to others and helping others understand things that I've experienced or I can teach them. And so that really has always been a part of me. I was a Boy Scout, right? Similar things. And throughout my professional career, I loved leading teams because it's an opportunity to build up an entire group together. We all rise together and support each other and help people. The mentoring is something that is so sorely needed out there in the world. And we all have our parents, and our parents give us phenomenal advice, but they're our parents, right? So we have our own, interpersonal dynamics built in that can sometimes get in the way. And so I've so often taken this mentoring role because I enjoy helping others achieve what they can achieve. However, I can help them do that. And one of the reasons for that is my belief, basically, that I believe that political capital, that whatever advice I can give them is inexhaustible and it's free. So if I can help a younger person see something differently or tap into something that they weren't aware of, I'll do that all day long. I never see that as something that takes away from what I want to do. So the shift from finance to that was really, I've been, successful, as you mentioned, in finance. And then I realized I wasn't having as much fun doing that as I do mentoring students and young professionals. So I said, you know what, I'm going to just turn that avocation, that hobby, into my full-time job.
You said help, and you can see that through your influence. Boy Scouts, you learn how to help people at an early age. Is that through your family? Was that your nature of your family, or is it how you're? I'll tell you this. I was kind of raised like that. I didn't know my dad. But my mom were like, you always help people.
Yeah.
Pump gas at her store when I was a kid. Like when someone asked me one day, like, when did you learn to grow up? Like, I learned how to help people.
Yeah.
Put other people first, and probably sometimes too often, right? I went through a phase where I put people first too much.
Sure.
And I had to find balance with that. And once you find that, but I've heard that word, bunch, and that's really neat to hear that influence. So growing up, was that your family, or is that?
It was. I mean, my mom was a nurse, and my dad was a defense attorney. In upstate New York. We're not talking corporate. We're talking helping people.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was all about the mantra in our house. It was try to give back, leave the world a better place than the way you found it.
Yeah. Yeah. I preach that as well. I'd leave it better than you found it. I coach kids athletics, and just in the dugout, right? Baseball dugout is when we walk in, I'm on everybody's butt. We're gonna leave it better than we found it. We're going to leave it. Let me tell you something. If we walk out of here, this trash is still here, it's going to be bad for you. Right?
I'm going to open up a can of something.
But I think it carried on to my interactions with people, and it's leave them better than you found them.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned, and I want to highlight this for you, is this stuff that you do. When you look at just your abilities, as folks sometimes think, well, I'm going to pay this guy to do a service, so I can figure this out on my own or whatever. What you do is you collapse time, and you can get them from start to success faster just because of your experience in a lot of cases. Does that hold true with the younger students that you work with, or younger folks that are trying to enter the career world?
I couldn't have put it better, Jeff. I mean, the analogy would be someone who's got incredible raw talent in track and field, but they don't have a coach. They just run by themselves and they go right to the Olympics and they come in fourth. And they think, well, I'm the fastest person in the world. How'd I come in fourth? Well, there were some tweaks that, you could have used. There was some coaching that would have helped you from someone who's really experienced, been there and done that, and knows what it takes to win. You have the raw talent. It's you that they're helping. They're not doing it for you. They're just helping you optimize and maximize what you already do. And what we find, I just published an article on LinkedIn about how challenging it is for young people today, because not only, they're battling the same way we did when we came out of school. They're battling to compete with others, to demonstrate that their skill is sufficient for the jobs they're applying for. But now it's much, much more than that. Now, it's not just I'm competing with people in the New York area for my New York job. I'm competing with people everywhere. Everyone in the world gets the same email notification when a job posting comes up. So there are hundreds of of applications for entry-level jobs within a couple of days. So they're competing with everybody now. And what it takes to win and what the companies expect from you has just gone way up. And unfortunately for young people today, the natural socialization that we had when we were young, we engaged with grown-ups all the time. We always had people over at the house. We knew all of our neighbors, right? We knew all the people in town. And if you were interested in something that your parents' friends did, you talked to them. Well, nowadays, not only has technology and our culture changed so much that that communication doesn't happen very often. Unfortunately, for people in their teens and early 20s, the vast majority of their interactions with others are this way. So they've really missed out on a lot. And not to mention this year's graduating seniors. So college graduates this year were high school seniors when COVID.
Yeah.
So they lost, let's call it 2 years of effective adult interaction. So not only have all these other changes that are making it harder to get a job, more competitive, but also the changes that have made it less likely they're going to be having those professional conversations. And then COVID hits. So nobody has a harder time with the DIY approach than young graduates now. So you said compressing the time. It's exactly right. And it's also, so we have a 15-year-old, we have 2 daughters, Charlotte 19, Claire 15. Claire is a sophomore in high school, very bright, very engaging, wonderful kid. There's no high school math that I couldn't teach her, but she has a tutor.
Yeah.
Because I'm her dad. And for some reason, that just doesn't work. So
Hey,
it's the same
Kurt,
with the job search.
That's not. I'm dad. I don't coach my kids. We coach for fun. I coach rec ball. Me and my son do that. It's just a project that we work on together, and it's a little bit of me helping him develop in what I have learned to develop in leadership and how I do people. And the things like what you were talking about earlier of and all the kids of leaving it better when found, how I interact with kids, how I interact with the parents. And I tell all the kids that are there, I want you all to do this. And the kids that aren't my kids work, they pick little nuggets, whatever, but also there's a point in time when I start just talking to a handful of kids and let them lead the rest. Because they'll listen to their friends and they'll listen to each other way more. They listen to me. You're spot on with that, man. And math, you start teaching English. See, I have coaches for my kids too. No.
So I have learned that and parents have told me this. Like, I believe parents give kids great advice, and I know the parents that of the students I've been working with, I know they've been giving great advice, but it's in 1 year out deal. So just hearing it from a third party, and again, I have a different experience. I've been doing this coaching and mentoring for more than 20 years, specifically to help people pursue the careers that they want. So when I will meet with somebody for the first time, I think one of the reasons in my corporate life, a lot of young people would come to me is because word got around. Curtis listens to you.
Yeah.
Curtis is truly interested in what happens to you and what you want to do, not in patting himself on the back and saying, this is what my career is. So when students reach out to me and say on LinkedIn or send me an email, Mr. Butler, I would love to get some time on your calendar to hear about your career. And I write them back, I'm happy to put time in the calendar, but we're not going to talk about my career. We're going to talk about yours and what it's going to take to get you from where you are right now to where you want to be. And the other part is it's easy to give people platitudes of, oh yeah, you'll do great. If you ever want to interview at my company, just give me a call. But it's another thing to actually invest the time in them and say, let's get your messaging perfect. Let's make sure that what you want to do is coming across in everything that you send out in your resumes and cover letters and your networking. And then let's make sure when it's interview time that you know how to handle that room. Let's prepare so that you go in confident and excited, which is what happens. You're like, I almost can't wait for the interview, Curtis, because I feel so prepared. for this specific injury. I know what questions to ask. I know how I'm going to address these things about my own history. It's really cool. And because for me, it's so much about helping peace leads to trust. I'm here for you. I will not judge you. I am here to tell you, I'm going to tell you talk too fast, not as a judgment, but because it's holding you back. So let's work on that. Let's work on slowing you down. Every student I work with, I said every single one of them has a Post-it note on their computer. And what that Post-it note says is different for everyone. So in one case, it's slow down. In another case, it's show me yourself, right? Show them who you are. Because some people just respond by answering questions instead of kind of being really active in the interview. So it's that trust that allows them or opens up the door, really, for me to be candid and really address their actual real challenges. It takes bravery on both sides to say, this is your challenge. Having met with you now 5 times, let's focus on your specific challenge. And that question that you had is, how am I not getting jobs? Am I great grades? Am I great experience? We've just answered it. Now we're going to fix it. And that's what I just love doing, helping them identify that obstacle that we can now clear.
Yeah, you had me thinking. I think as smart as we are, and I was on a panel the other day, and one of the standouts, and then I told the group later, and I was like, he's got probably the most potential, but lacks the most experience. And I was sitting here thinking about, had he met with you ahead of time, you would have been like, this is where you got to get stronger for this, and this is where. And I was working and doing some of the leadership stuff that I do, just trying to take an adult who's worked maybe as a laborer their entire life, and we're trying to move them into a leadership role or whatever. So I've just got a handful of books, and I start them with these books, and one of them is one of the first books I read was John Gordon's Energy Bus, and it's just about being positive. That's all it is. It's just because you pay a lot of laborers will be like, I'm not going to, and they have this mindset of I can only do this, and they don't understand leadership. So I try to just get them energy bus, and you would be surprised. And it's like, well, this is what leadership is. I'm not going to do it. Like, it's just part of the process, and it's trying to start there to give them, because hey, it's an easy read or listen. It's the way he read, and I know how it spoke to me. But thinking about those things, like that, to where you can help accelerate people in conversation. I was thinking about the kid. I was like, man, I wish you'd met with Curtis ahead of time, right? It would have been good. What do you think is the 3 soft skills that you believe are crucial for standing out in today's competitive job market?
Yeah. So this is all on my website and in the article that I just published on LinkedIn. But there's surveys that are done with the employers every year. And what employers are saying is the most important skill to them for the students that they interview is communication. Almost 100% of employers said communication is the most important skill they're looking for, but they're only finding it in half of the people they talk. Okay. So communication, we talked about, right? Communication is a huge issue. And I'm going to say this hand on heart, no fault of their own. They have been absolutely vacuumed into this change in our culture that is technology driven and texting and Snapchat by well-knowing adults who willingly drag these kids into this new thing. And the kids just can't possibly say no, right? It's just too attractive. It's too addictive. So I don't blame the kids. So what I say is, let's work on the skills that you missed. Let's not deal with the fact I'm not criticizing you and I'm not judging you, but let's build those skills, and they can be built quickly because these kids are bright. They pick things up fast. So let's work on those things that the employers are looking for that you would have no idea about because you've never been told or you've never had this personal experience. So number 1 is communication. Number 2 is leadership. So they want to see leadership on your resume. Colleges too, right? Colleges want to see you weren't just in the club, you were president of the club, right? And they want to see leadership demonstrated. So on your resume, they always say use active verbs, right? I conducted this, I researched that. And one of their favorite active verbs is I led this project, I led this team. They want to see self-starters, people who can organize and plan and manage and lead. So that's another one. And then they love inclusion and openness and acceptance of others. Right? That's a huge deal in corporate America today. Right? This whole equity and inclusion idea. They want people who are embracing people of all cultures and backgrounds and lifestyles. So they want to be able to see that demonstrated as well. They don't want rigid, because corporate America, small company or large, has changed a lot just in the past 20 years. So they want people who can adapt to that. But I think really critical, and people who also, one of the things I find is most challenging for young people today is knowing their own story. They don't take the time, I can't remember if we did, but they don't take the time to actually sit down and think, what is my story? Who am I? If somebody said to me, it's the true elevator pitch. I'm meeting you for the first time. Tell me about yourself. That is the most common beginning of an interview that they will ever hear in their careers. And if you asked your typical high school student, they would really struggle with that. A typical college student, they would really struggle with that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I call that the personal narrative. That's the beginning of most interviews for lots of reasons. One of the reasons being that the person interviewing you just looked at the resume for the first time. So they're just making it easy on themselves. Tell me about yourself. But it's also, in fairness, it's a great way to start, because I want to know how you think of you. I want to know the way you're looking at your life, your experience, your skills related to this job, the one that you're interviewing for. So I teach, and we work a lot on that personal narrative. My personal narrative starts with what you asked. I grew up one of 5 kids, a son of a lawyer and a nurse. These are the values in my home. I was an Eagle Scout and a good student. I was lucky enough to be born smart and went to this college to pursue these things. I fell in love with it, ended up going towards finance because I want to know how the world works, right? And the world works, unfortunately, for better or worse, through money. And I just love the economy and finance, and all the way up to today. And that's a 30+ year career. I can do it in less than 60 seconds.
Yeah.
But you know what the most meaningful thing in that whole story was to a lot of people? It was the values, right? It was the teamwork. He grew up digging ditches and planting trees. He was one of 5 kids, knows what it means to not be the center of the universe. And this is interesting. I talk about this a lot. The jaws of the college students drop.
Yeah.
I say, because they debate all the time. The students say, well, I was told that a resume shouldn't bother with a personal line because it just takes up space. And I said, here's a true story. After all my years of experience, having spoken, interviewed many times myself, but also having spoken to lots of very senior, well-placed people in the world of finance and elsewhere, the most commented on item on my resume was something I did when I was 18 years old. Eagle Scout.
Yeah.
Why? Because it tells so much about me. Like, who doesn't want an Eagle Scout on their team?
Yeah.
So this is how I work with the students.
That's, when you say Eagle Scout, I've worked around those guys. I tell you, I was years ago trying to think of which setting I was in, and it was maybe a camp setting or whatever, and we were one of the young. There was a guy there. He was like, "Hey, where can I go?" Oh. He was moving to the area where I'm from, and he was like, "Where can I go find?" He's looking for work or trying, and I was like, "Hey, well, these are the companies that hire, college kids." It was he was going to a medical school that we have here. This is what he told me, and I was like, "Hey, these are the places where you can find, they're very flexible schedules." And he said, "Sir, I'm an Eagle Scout. I'm looking for something bigger." It's like, "Yes, sir." I was like, "Hang on, yeah, well, you got me here now." But
There you go.
he wasn't looking for. He goes, I want to go somewhere where I can lead people. I'm not looking to go put hammer nails. I'm looking for, and it spoke to me when he said it. And I was like, hey, there's other opportunities for you.
That's right. And what's so interesting is when the students hear those stories, they think, aha, I have to start thinking about and talking about myself in a different way.
Yeah.
In a very similar vein, I'm blown away by student athletes. Blown away. They don't know how impressive they are.
Yeah.
Because they're basically, especially collegiate athletes, they are managing 2 full-time jobs. And these are engineers and economics and statistics 4.0s.
Yep.
With 30 to 40 hours a week dedicated to their sport. Now, because this has been their entire life, they've never known different. They don't know how unusual it is. So I tell them, and we really focus on their student athleteness when they're telling their story and on their resume, because it's so impressive. And all the skills that they learn, the time management and prioritization skills of doing both, but also all the extra skills they learn as being a competitive athlete and a member of a team. So these are conversations that they just don't get the opportunity to have. And so it's just the two of us. We slow it down. I do all my coaching on Zoom, and your parents aren't here. Your friends who got their jobs already aren't here. It's just us. How are we going to get you exactly where you want to go?
Yeah. You mentioned a couple interview hiccups. What are there a couple common interview mistakes that are common that you see interviewees making, and then maybe just a little bit of strategy of how they can overcome that?
Sure. So again, back to the employers. Some recent statistics came out this year. There was a survey done by intelligent.com, and they were asking employers about what experience they've had. And more than half of the employers cited the fact that students had trouble maintaining eye contact.
Yeah.
Gets back to what we talked about before, right? Face-to-face conversation is almost like a lost art. A third of them, more than a third, reported that the students were not appropriately dressed. And almost a quarter, this one makes me laugh every time, almost a quarter brought a parent to the meeting. So
I've heard of all these.
But they're easy to fix.
Very.
And then I go steps further. It's like, it's not just not hitting the ball into the net. It's about learning how to do a really good top hand, right? So I teach them how to not just not stumble in the interview, but how to really master the interview. Down, everything from their speech to their surroundings, to their lighting, absolutely everything related to the interview. So it's just about getting them that much closer to the offer, increasing the odds, improving the odds of them getting the offer. That's what the work is all about.
I ran into the eye contact thing with my athletes that I work with, and I told all of them we broke it down to end the game, and I got to work with some of our all-star kids. So I was my standards elevated them on just in my expectations. And there was a point in time during one of our post practices, nobody was making eye contact with me. And I stopped and told them, it was like, you want to know what the difference in making your next team is, whether it's high school, middle school, college, whatever that next team you try out for, is give the coach, whoever's talking, your attention and make eye contact with them and let them know that you're engaged. Because that's one hurdle. If you're just at least listening to them, that's a hurdle that they're not going to have to cross with you. Right. They know that you're plugged in. And then I learned something on the properly dressed thing was I ran into a situation where the interviewee didn't know it, didn't know, and just no one had said, so we take that for granted. You and I can see me totally taking, wearing nice clothes to an interview because that's the way I was raised. We made some assumptions that skill's been passed on.
Yes.
As crazy as it sounds, I did hear that though.
Yes. And I continue to hear extreme examples of that. So rather than judge the young people, let's just help them.
Yeah.
Let's just, teach them what we were taught, and they'll do better. Because for better or worse, they are hired by people that are generally a generation older. So it's important to adapt a little bit to what that generation expects and what that generation is used to. That generation, in this case, being us.
Yeah.
And we are used to that, a little bit more formality, right? To making the effort, taking the time.
You talked about our cell phone culture. You're spot on with what you were saying. I ran into that with my kids. Our busing system was not. I mean, they were not overly communicating when they were going to be late. So we made that decision to get kids cell phones when they hit kind of that middle schoolish area. And I have sat down with them, and we go through them. Like we sit down with them. We're not trying to violate your policy or your privacy, but we want to show you. And I had a conversation with them. I was like, listen, cell phone culture is something that all of us are learning. So, and I use that thing with them. I'm like, I don't know. I have to find balance with this myself. This technology is new for me. And I'm like, this is my first time being a dad. I'm trying to figure this out as we go. But I tell them, you have the world in your hand. When it comes to just doing crazy things, whether it's a dumb text or taking a picture, whatever. I'm like, I didn't have to deal with it. So we're learning that together. So we try to create those balance moments to keep from this, and making sure. And what I've noticed, Curtis, is I really challenge parents. I don't want you to feel like you're going to go in and violate your kids' privacy, but I think that you provide them ditch lines because they're in these group texts and they don't. There's a lot of information, and then just because they want to be around their friends, and just take a peek at that and explain like, hey, this is not a conversation you want to be. I've moved my kids out of conversations before and said, we're not going to do that. But I think sometimes just earlier on, as we're all are learning that balance of these devices that we have in our hands, almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week now, of being able to really help, and not just hand that over to them and be like, you'll fit it. It's us all work together to create a good, positive experience with that, because it's such a great tool to have, but it can't
Absolutely.
consume you.
And again, you raise an excellent point, because one thing that I think we all struggle with, but particularly as a challenge for young people developmentally, is impulse control. So as you said, when we were young, there was one phone in the house. I was one of 5 kids. So you had to share that phone and share the time. You couldn't sit on the phone with your girlfriend or boyfriend for 3 hours. It's just never going to, you couldn't do your homework, and you have siblings. So it's never going to happen. But if you wanted to talk to somebody, let's say you're mad at somebody from school and you're home and you're complaining to your parents. Back then, it would be get them on the phone or wait till you see him tomorrow at school. Or you could write them a letter and they'd get it in 4 days.
Yeah.
What about now? You hear something that somebody says, you send a text, a nasty text.
Yeah.
Or on the group chat, even worse. So that impulse control, if somebody's in a bad mood, they text anyway. Now it's in the group text. And what was just somebody upset for a moment that they would get over is now in permanent ink on the internet, and is now really changed the tone of that group chat. So these challenges that these young people face today are things that we never had to. So to your point, it's our job to help them, to teach them strategies. Look, literally, if you're that upset that you want to send off a really angry text, put down the phone, go get some fresh air, come talk to me. But just don't send that angry text. And these are just really simple lessons. I mean, it's hard for them to follow through, but it's really simple lessons that if every parent did this, there'd be a lot less of this bullying that we talk about, right? There'd be a lot less of the anxiety. I mean, the need of these kids to fit in, and there's 11 people on their group, and somebody says something cruel. How are they supposed to take that at the age of 13? It's just too much. So that is not the topic of this
No, but it's a
conversation.
listen, listen, Curtis, the folks listening to this, it's not on topic, but it's a problem that if you could police this early, Curtis doesn't have to help fix it when it comes time. And it is. We're all learning that together. Tell me, Drew, your coaching experiences, do you have a success story that stands out to you that something you'd like to share or could share?
Sure. I'm dealing with a student right now who's an incredible student athlete, remarkable in high school, captain of two incredible high school sports teams, and then went to a top Ivy League university. Has everything on his resume that you would think would lead to a million offers, and it just wasn't happening. So we worked together, and was about identifying, there was some work, there's always work to be done on the messaging, on the resumes and the cover letters. You'd be surprised. Even experienced professionals, if I ask them to show me a cover letter, it's like 5 dense paragraphs. And I say, no, a cover letter is to cover, it's a cover for your resume. It's supposed to be short, to the point. I'm writing to express my genuine interest in this open position. I believe I have the skills required to allow me to succeed on your team. And then you demonstrate that in a paragraph, and then you sign off with humility saying, I would be honored to work for your firm and would love to have the conversation. That shows respect for the person who's reading it. And I don't have to wade through it. I'm actually probably not going to, because I think if I'm your boss and I ask you for a summary, a conclusion, can you solve that issue for me for tomorrow morning's meeting? I want it to be concise. I want it to be to the point. I asked you for your view. I want your view. I don't need all the work that you did going into it. So the person who writes me the 5 dense paragraphs may not be the right person for me. So I teach all those kinds of things about improving the messaging. But with this individual, it got back to just identifying the one thing that might have been standing in the way. And we found it. And we worked on it. And it went away. And it was literally because so much of this entire process, the job search, is 50% human psychology. So we just worked on how is this appear, what is the other person seeing? What are they hearing? So we worked on all of that. And it was like night and day, this amazing individual who had everything to speak to getting a wonderful job, but it wasn't happening. And once we fixed that one thing, then it started to happen. So that's why I'm also a big believer. There's a lot of benefit to group coaching. I'm considering it, but I'm also a huge believer in personalized, customized coaching, because the reason you're not getting a job may be very different from the reason someone else isn't getting a job.
I think you can. I did own a group exercise gym, and you're spot on with that. When you use that same mentality, I can deliver a workout to a group. Everybody can move together and all these other things. But when you use nutrition as the example, I got to tailor that to you. And that's a one-on-one moment for us type thing. So you're absolutely right for that. And I think to kind of anchor on that too is when you've been able to solve this person's find that thing, is all that fee or whatever that charge is for you, that is overshadowed by this landing this career and this job that so I think the way I want to go with that is just to let everyone know, because I'm a coach and I've coached people. The biggest thing people shy back from is when they see a price tag, I can't afford that. But look how fast that you were able, just like the stuff that I work on, look how fast we're able to take our experience and collapse that time like we were talking about earlier. But his path from no dollars to where he wants to, at least start it, or she, is probably significant.
It is, and I think you've really hit the nail on the head. The median income, so the median salary for college graduates today, right out of school, is around $50,000. That's the median, right? The people in finance, engineering, those highly technical fields, much higher. less demanding technical fields, or things like retail or general business, marketing. It's lower, but the median is 50. So let's call that a little over $4,000 a month. If I can save you 3 months in your job search, that's $12,000 worth of income you'll be receiving that you weren't going to receive. My coaching is way less than that.
Yeah.
So I think that's right. It's about thinking big picture and recognizing what's neat about it. The same with your coaching. What's neat about it is, even though we're focused on helping you start your career and helping you with a specific job search, the skills, the information will serve you your entire life.
Yeah.
You will think about any job you apply for in the future. I guarantee you will look at differently once you go through the method, once you go through the approach that works.
Yeah. Now I think I just wanted folks to understand, and this is the approach in business when I'm coaching with business, and folks they're getting ready, they want to make a capital purchase and they're hung up on the price, and sit down and I turn it around and I go, let's don't focus on what it costs us. Let's focus on what it makes us. And
it's an investment.
Yeah, that's where you are. It's the same thing. Let's don't focus on what it's going to cost us, but what it makes us. Tell me, and for everyone, there's finance background, but there's Curtis the dad as well. And you and I were speaking briefly, but I think you are in a situation with a daughter that has really helped shape, and you mentioned that as her challenges as being one of your second chance experiences that we wanted to talk about. How is her and your personal journey just shaped your perspective and influenced you and on your life and career coach?
Sure. So yes, as you highlighted and I mentioned at the outset, I've always been very mindful of my ability to and my just love of helping people. And I thought I was always a good guy, right? A guy who was just, you can rely on him. He's trustworthy. He's got integrity and he wants to help. And then my wife and I had our first daughter. She's Charlotte. She's 19 in October. So in 2005, this beautiful baby came along and the wheels came off. And we learned that she had just incredibly significant disabilities. She had seizures right after she was born, and it turns out she has cerebral palsy. So she's in a wheelchair, she's non-speaking, but she's delightful and beautiful and fun and smart and engaging. But what she taught me, to your point, has made me 10 times the helper, teacher, coach than I ever could have been without. Because she taught me resilience, patience, resourcefulness. And I would go back to the most important, and related to the patience, and the most important is, from a very, very early on, this was a big transition for me. Very early on, I shifted from the typical parent of why me? Why is this happening to us? Very quickly, I switched to why not me? And I started seeing only everything that Charlotte can do and who she is, not what she can do and who she isn't. And I've never turned back. It's always been that way. I see her for the incredible person that she is. That translates directly to my coaching. So I'm able to see, and most people probably are, but I think I've really honed this ability, able to see the shiniest parts of everyone.
Yeah.
The parts that they really have to provide the world, right? The legendary entrepreneur coach, Dan Sullivan, describes it as your unique ability. What you have to offer the world that nobody else does. And that's kind of what we draw out. so that it becomes super obvious in those interviews there's something special about this person. Because as you know, you have an entirely different life from the one I have, and we both have the same experience. So that everyone has something to offer. Everyone is special in some way. It's about bringing that out and showing the world and letting the world say, I can do that. I can use that. There's a lot I can work with there. So I think being Charlotte's dad has taught me so many things that opened my eyes and made me just a better human being. And I'm so grateful because the human being that I was obviously could have become, but wasn't going to be without these challenges.
Yeah, beat to that, we overlook those little things about us sometimes because the rest of the world overshadows us, or that's people's belief. Um, what advice? What advice do you have for parents who are trying to balance a demanding career while being there for their children, especially those with unique needs?
So the most important advice that I can give, and I'm just another parent like them, right? I struggle just as much as every parent does. But I think the most important is developing that patience. And all of our kids try us in different ways, right? My perfectly typical 15-year-old who's brilliant and talented and funny challenges probably just as much as her sister in entirely different ways, right? We joked that when she was 3 years old, she was ready to argue before the Supreme Court. And now she's 15. So imagine how those skills have been honed. But it's about recognizing that they are not little grown-ups.
Yeah.
Their brains are not fully developed till their 20s. So expecting them to see things the way we do, to be able to handle things the way we do. COVID was a perfect example. We grown-ups expected our kids to roll with the punches as quickly as we did. How could they? Young, we're talking elementary school kids. They're looking at the world like it's ending. Right? And they had to wear masks and they have to be afraid of other people. And they have to throw their clothes in the laundry the second they walk in. I mean, that's what it was like in early 2020. This was traumatic for them. It was unusual and inconvenient and a little bit scary for us. Those are different. So recognizing that children are not small grown-ups. They're immature. Their brains are not fully developed. They don't have the social skills, the problem-solving skills that grown-ups have developed, regardless of how bright they are. We all develop those skills to cope and to survive in the world. So just remembering as parents, I have to remember it too. They're still kids. They're going to make kid mistakes. They're going to make kid blunders. They're going to say kid things. And they need to be allowed to do that.
Yeah. That's you're spot on with that. And they're their own people. They would make that mistake. Just because they're kids doesn't mean they're not their own individual people with their own wants, needs, their own way they process things. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I love what you just said, Jeff, because I say that to our youngest Claire all the time. I said, Mom and I had we've chosen our lives. We've made our choices. This is yours.
Yeah.
So you're not a part of my resume. You're your own person.
Yep.
So no, you don't have to play soccer if you don't want to play soccer, right? This is yours. What do you want to do? I'm here to help you. I'm not here to tell you. It gets back to that same thing.
That's exactly how we do it here. And we also like, I've helped them make decisions saying, listen, this is if we don't take some action here, these are, I'll teach them the consequences. Like,
yes.
This is where we're headed. If you want to do this or this, these are the repercussions. So I help them understand their risk and the repercussions, but ultimately it's their decision.
And we have to let them fail at the small things, right?
Yep. Athletics is good for helping failures. I think, and it doesn't, athletics is, we put it behind us, move on. We win, we celebrate, buy some ice cream. If we lose, we'll have some ice cream. but we talk about it briefly, like, hey, what's our takeaways? And said, now they're listening. We're on more. We got more winning. Um, a lot of folks hit pause when they either lose or win, and they spend too much time, I think, in that moment. I have friends that are my age. They're like, if I'd only called it, yeah, but I know. It's just no. It's stop it.
I
Tell
don't know if
me.
you watched Ted Lasso, but at one point in Ted Lasso, they were talking, it's a soccer team. And one guy was really upset about something that happened. He said, the coach, Ted, said to him, be a goldfish. I think, what do you mean? A goldfish has like a 2-second memory. Just be
Yeah,
a goldfish. Let it go.
yeah, let it go. I like that. I have folks like yourself that give me, they like, I heard this in Ted Lasso, or they'll tell me about things that I'll say or whatever, but they'll use a reflection. I remember that one from some of my next stuff. I appreciate you sharing it with me. Um, tell me about the Stride Adaptive Sports, and the work that you're doing with them, and why is that cause important?
Sure. So it's really important that we provide Charlotte as many opportunities to live like a typical kid as we can. And that includes, we live in a sports town. And that includes sporting, athletic, fun, outdoorsy activities. So Charlotte has gone paragliding.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I wish I had thought to pull up, but we have videos of her in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, off a beautiful mountaintop. And people say to me, I'm sorry, what? Your daughter in a wheelchair was flying? I said, yeah. There was a very experienced, they call them pilots, paragliding, a very experienced pilot who has done over 700 adapted flights. So we said, we're all going to do it. Charlotte's going to do it. I remember, like I said, she's non-speaking, but she understands everything we say. And I said, listen, honey, we're going out to Wyoming. You're going to fly, not in an airplane. You're actually going to be flying through the breeze in the air. And she just was so excited. And everyone else thought we were crazy, right? I have a poster on her wall. It's basically a wheelchair in the air.
Yeah.
And she had a wonderful, wonderful time. But long before that, we said, you know what, my wife was an avid skier before we got married. We wanted to teach our youngest how to ski. We said, let's find a ski mountain that has adapted programs. And so we went up on the border of Massachusetts and New York. There's a big resort, a big ski mountain. And they have this group called Stride that takes kids down the slopes who have mental and physical challenges. And they said, well, let's give it a try. It was remarkable. Their whole philosophy is, let's make it fun for the kids, not let's make it something that so we don't get sued. It's all about liability. No, it's about these kids want to feel like typical kids. So they race them down the mountain. And we were just blown away. And then we found a mountain more local to us. And then it just went 10 times bigger. This guy is like basically a racer on a snowboard. And he said, oh yeah, we are flying down the mountain. We're going to pass all kinds of people. And Charlotte's going to, because she's an adrenaline junkie, she loves to move, but she can't move on her own. So she loves to swing, right? She loves long car rides. But anyway, these skiers were remarkable. So I called up the CEO and I said, I love what you guys do for these kids. I want to be a part of this organization. I'll represent the parental point of view, right? The accessible community's point of view. So yeah, that's been like 5 years.
For the folks that are listening that may be looking for Stride, how can they? We'll get your stuff here in a few minutes as we're wrapping up. While we're here, so it doesn't get overshadowed, how can folks that need this find?
So it's very localized. So there are lots of organizations like Stride all over the country. Stride is very much New York, Massachusetts, a little bit of Connecticut. But and it's stride.org on the web. It's a not-for-profit. But there's the good news is, and with the internet, it's amazing. There's organizations like this all over the country. Stride doesn't just do skiing; they do summer sports, they do camping, they do road races, and it's worth Googling in your local area, not only if your child has specific needs, but also as a volunteer. We also participate with this other group called My Team Triumph, which does road races. And so if there's a 5K in the area, a standard 5K, and they're all over the state of Connecticut, or a 10K or a half marathon, there are athletes who would otherwise be racing who say, no, I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to race these kids. So they're in joggers. So Charlotte does road races all summer. And real athletes are saying, yeah, I'm not going to run a 5-minute mile. I'm going to run a 7-minute mile, but your daughter's going to be in front of me.
Yeah. That's too cool.
It's really awesome. And what's the message? The message is, Charlotte, you can have the same kind of life as everybody else.
Yeah.
And she's proud of that. The first time we went skiing, there's a picture of her looking up at me like, Dad, thank you so much. And when I go to school, I can say, I went skiing this weekend.
Yeah. I can't imagine that feeling fits. Like, that's just moments, and those are moments of oh man, I can't imagine how well you felt. Holy crap! Just add to that, right? Just
yeah, it's awesome. And all parents can feel that too. You take your kid to Disney World for the first time. It's a similar thing, right? Thank you so much for doing this for me.
Yeah, big deal. What is your long-term goals for Guided Ascent Career Coaching? Is it going to evolve into bigger, or how do you envision that evolving over the next few years?
So, thank you. That is the plan. Yeah. What I discovered when I started doing the research to launch this is that the need is gigantic. Here's a perfect example. There was a big study. It's called Talent Disrupted. You can Google it, pull up the PDF. Big study was conducted and finished in February of this year, where they determined that a full 52% of recent college graduates are taking jobs that don't require a college degree. So half of the people graduating from college today are quote unquote underemployed, which means they're not in the career they wanted. They're not earning what they could be. And if they stay underemployed for even a few years, the likelihood is they will always be there. So someone who wanted a proper career is now just a barista. And they're finding it really hard to get back. Why? Because it's much more competitive than ever. And nobody's standing still. You're not just competing with your graduates anymore. It's the next class, and the next class, the next class. So, and the other piece is those soft skills that you brought up. Our young people today really need coaching on how to present themselves to the professional world. And the thing is, this doesn't require years of work. These are things that can be addressed, corrected, improved quickly. The most important thing is the realization, right? People don't know what they don't know. They don't know how important internships are. Really important. And I help students get those internships because it dramatically reduces by 50%, the likelihood that they end up underemployed. So, there's an entire industry, tons of resources, particularly where I live here and, commutable distance to New York City. Huge amount of time, energy, and money goes into getting our kids into college. But very little time is focused on what they're going to do when they're there and how to get them out.
Oh, wow.
That's what I focus on. So I think the need is gigantic. I'm told that everywhere. Friends, parents of the students I work with. So my goal is to take the approach that I have, which is, as I mentioned, very driven by the experience I've had as a manager, as a leader, mentor, and in the interview room, and distilling that down into something very practical for the person who's in front of me or for the group that's learning about resumes and cover letters and networking and interviewing and how to win the room and how to tell your own story. So this is kind of my approach, and I would like to take that large. I would like to hire coaches and have this and work with corporations. Right now, the corporations are the ones answering those surveys saying today's graduates are not ready for the working world. And my ultimate goal is to work with them, my company, to make all of what we know and our coaching available to the graduates are headed to Microsoft or Google or Ford Motor Company or the big finance companies, the big banks, and catch them before they enter the workforce and train them up and coach them while they're in school before they try to enter the working world. And this is the long-term goal, to work with the companies to identify, these are the 6 schools I like to recruit from. Great, I'll work with those schools and get their graduates ready for you.
And for the folks that are listening here, for the young person that's tuning in, listening to a couple old guys talk about life here, is we're talking the difference in hundreds of thousands of dollars over time as well, probably. Knowing the specialty services, mention those names you mentioned, those are significant paying career opportunities. And you're right, it is, you find that brilliant mindset, in places where that brilliant mind should be. Working with you can really help folks get, realize their worth. I think it's sometimes where we get hung up is folks, they don't realize what they're worth or what their skill set's worth. And you saw that, Curtis. I think, just knowing you for last hour, right?
Well, I try to. I work with them to figure it out for themselves too. I say, look, you want to enter the Indy 500. You can't just drive your Corolla up to the track. Let's turn that Corolla into a Ferrari, based on everything about you, not about what somebody else has, not about the Harvard MBA that isn't you, based on what you've actually done and who you are. Let's find the Ferrari in you. And that's what I really try to do. And that's where Charlotte and Claire have helped me so much.
Yeah. Yeah, you can really see that when you take that approach. Real quick, I got just a couple of things we'll wrap up. I'm curious because I love to ask you this. What was you going to be when you was a little kid?
I wanted to be an archaeologist.
Yeah?
So, yeah, my dad was a lawyer, as I mentioned, but he was also a painter, an artist. So when I grew up, we were always drawing things. And for me, it was drawing dinosaurs. So and it was really paleontologist. I didn't know that at the time, but I always wanted to deal with dinosaur bones and find woolly mammoths. That's all I wanted to do when I was a little kid.
I'll send it to you, Curtis. There's a meme I found the other day on one of my feeds and sent it to my kids. It said, enjoy it while you can. Adults don't ask other adults about their favorite dinosaurs.
Wow. Yeah.
I'll email it over to you. But when you said
that's fantastic.
Last question, and then I want to know how everybody can get in touch with you. But the last question, and I think when you listen to everything that Curtis talks about and the skills and the mentoring and everything that he has, if you could go back to your younger self and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
That's a wonderful question. And what I'm really glad about is that it's the one piece of advice that I think I've followed. And this comes largely from my dad. It's no matter what is happening around you and the people in your life and what you're doing in your life, you always have to stay true to your inner core, your rudder. That's the definition of personal integrity.
Yeah.
And that's something that I have really I've tried to stay on that course my entire life. And that has led, you asked at the outset, why to make changes? That has led to a lot of the decisions that I've made, because integrity comes first.
Yeah. For the folks that don't know, integrity is doing the right thing when nobody else is looking. I preach that to my kids. My son's 15, my daughter's 12. So with him, especially where he's at just a little bit older, and she and I to really get into some of that same path, but I preach that, teach your reputation. Curtis, as we wrap up, man, how do you want people, let's get your website, but how do you want people to get in touch with you?
Sure. A great way is if someone is interested in talking about the coaching that I do, you just hop on my website. It's just jobreadygrads.com and book a free consultation. You can also, there's a lot of freebies out there. I offer a lot to young people who are looking for jobs through postings that I do on LinkedIn, Believe it or not, I've just started posting on Instagram and TikTok.
That's all.
But so on both of those, it's Job Ready Grads. And on LinkedIn, it's me, Curtis Butler. But I encourage people, particularly students and recent grads, to go on, particularly onto LinkedIn. There's real quality posts that give them very practical tips on how to interview, how to write a resume, how to get jobs. And that's there. Anyone who connects with me can get those tips.
Yeah.
But like I said, Job Ready Grads will direct you to my website. And I'd be happy to chat with anyone who's interested in some coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I want to close with is making sure that I overemphasize what Curtis does. And I can't, being a coach, working as a coach, watching folks struggle, and you guys will learn more about me as time goes on. I kick the can. I'm the guy that would avoided the Curtises of the world just because I didn't see the value until I got older. And as I got older, I was like, wait a minute, I need a coach. So I hire coaches for everything. I get coaches for my kids. If I can't figure it out in a short amount of time, I'm going to be finding someone who's where I want to get to, and I'm going to pay them to help me get there, because it's like you said, I've said it a lot, collapsing time. And if there's anything that I've learned in my birthdays this weekend, as I turned 50, if there's anything I've learned, time is absolutely our most valuable asset. And I think everyone should guard it and approach Curtis and let him help you with your career, so you can definitely find your worth and not go through some of the struggles that I have and other people that others has as well. So probably tons of success stories out there as well. Curtis, thank you. I can't thank you enough for joining. If you folks have questions, message them to me on Instagram. I'll make sure that I'm back linked in here as well. And then if we need to, Curtis and I can jump back on for a mini update, and then hopefully we can revisit in a little bit of time, and we can just catch up and see where you're at and see how you're progressing with all the things that you do, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Jeff. This has been really fun. I'd be happy to do another chat with you.